Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with Chabad of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Ronich of Statewide News Service and jbiztechvalley.com. We have a very, very special guest with us, Senator Simcha Felder. Simcha, can I call you first name Simcha?
Please.
Very good. Simcha, you know, it's really a great honor for you to be here on the Jewish View.
It is.
Yeah, thank you.
It is.
It is for me, yeah. And
well, as people could see right away, you have a beard and a yarmulke. I mean, that you're a religious Orthodox Jewish person, and sometimes you'll say, well, wait a minute, you're a rabbi? I say, maybe Rabbi Zama got it wrong. You're Rabbi Felder? No, you're Senator Felder. And that is really something very special, that you're the only Orthodox Jewish person in the state Senate today. That's very, very special.
And you are a CPA by profession.
I am a CPA and I have an MBA in business.
Right.
But that's not what makes somebody.
Well, no,
right?
but it's good for background that people should know that you're not an attorney, because most
that's
legislators
true.
are attorneys.
That's true.
So I just like
no,
the
I
variety.
appreciate that.
I like the variety.
I teach as well.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
And do you have given that you're good with numbers and you're good with business, having the MBA and the CPA, how do you see the state budget? And do you see this as being totally dysfunctional from a CPA standpoint, or is it all in good working order?
Well, saying that
generally
it's
speaking.
dysfunctional would mean that I'd have to say that I'm dysfunctional myself. And some may say that, but I think that being a CPA and having some of that background helps me a lot as well. And when it comes to the budget process, I can't tell you where that is at this time.
Just move it up. Yeah.
Fix it?
Yeah, just move it up.
Is it functional?
Up.
How is it now?
Good.
Good.
So
But, you
It
know,
certainly helps.
I
It
think
certainly
but I'm
helps.
just saying, when
Yeah.
you look over the budget and you look at the documents, this isn't your first state budget. So I'm not looking at this particular one. But just generally speaking, do you feel more confident that you know what the numbers are? When you get up and, let's say, would debate the budget or debate on a business level, do you see this in a different light than your colleagues who are not a CPA and are not an accountant?
I don't know. I would say that there are certainly colleagues of mine that see it a lot more clearly than I do. And there are colleagues of mine that I see it probably a lot more clearly, and some
I think
that
it's important.
Yeah.
I mean, because usually you see on an honor percentages, Mark's our man in the Capitol, but how many are lawyers? And usually I know it's like probably 90% or something like that. It's just good to see another person. That's what we're saying, with a different perspective.
Certainly,
on how to
I'm
look at
happy to have that attribute, about being, I would say, being good with numbers, but I don't know about saying that gives me a plus or a minus. It certainly is helpful to me.
Okay.
Just being an Orthodox Jewish person, I mean, first of all, sometimes you are what you are, and every person, if they're non-Jews, they're Jewish, and they're Afro-American, I mean, they're going to come into the Capitol with their perspective on things, and that's really what a democracy is.
Mm-hmm.
Got Democrats, Republicans, everybody's coming in with their issues and things that they want to get, legislated, passed. But as an Orthodox Jewish person, like I say, in a way you're unique because you're the only Orthodox Jewish person in the Senate. I mean, what are special issues from number one, your district, which is Borough Park, which is a major Orthodox Jewish community. I think it's the most dense Jewish community, even from Israel. That's what they say, that it's so packed. So, I mean, do you have any perspectives on that, or special legislation that you would like to see passed that pertains to the Orthodox Jewish community?
No, I'm not sure you're aware, but I have many Lubavitch Chabad nephews and nieces throughout the world. And the Rebbe himself, I used to go to many Farbrengens, used to talk about Yefutzu Meinesecha Chutza, which means that you should spread, everywhere. So it's true that I represent a overwhelmingly Orthodox Jewish district, but my job primarily, I think, is to make sure that we make a Kiddush Hashem, sanctify God's name, wherever we are and whatever we do. And I believe that everybody has the opportunity to do that everywhere, wherever it is. So I chair two committees. One is New York City Education, and that's very, very important, as well as Children and Families. So that, in the context of that, I'm here certainly to do everything I can to ensure that my district gets the resources and the legislation that's important to it. But I'd say that an equally or more important responsibility is helping the children and families in New York State. So when it comes to that, we've talked about, there's a big piece of legislation we got passed last year that I think is critical, which was the transportation bill. The transportation bill, in essence, allows public and non-public schools, if I may say the word privatize, to be able to provide transportation for their kids themselves. In other words, that the city is saying we will reimburse schools to provide transportation on their own if they wish so. And that was a piece of legislation that was passed last year.
And you have a bill that you're co-sponsoring with Marty Golden, creating an education investment tax credit in New York State.
Yeah, that's a fabulous bill.
Could you talk about that a
Yeah,
little
and
more?
God willing, we hope that it'll get passed this year. So for a very long time, many advocates have been trying to do everything they can to help non-public school parents. And there's always been an argument that if all the non-public school parents would register their kids in public schools, it would flood the system and the state would have to spend billions of dollars more for educating those kids. And why shouldn't there be more benefit to non-public schools since they're really saving a lot of money? And there are certain things that have, over the years, been put into place. Transportation is one of them, that non-public schools get reimbursed or they're provided. Lunches, textbooks, and some other things. But this item would allow anybody to contribute a part of their tax due. So going back to my CPA credentials is the right word, is that there's a distinction between itemizing deductions. For example, people own homes and things like that are allowed to come up to a number which is applied to reduce their tax due. But it doesn't, for example, if you own a home and pay interest, the interest payments don't come off the tax that you're going to pay. It comes off a formula that brings it there. This legislation would mean that if at the end of the day somebody owes $1,000, they would be able to take a certain amount, dollar for dollar, of the tax they owe, and contribute that to a foundation that would provide to public and non-public schools additional resources. To the public schools, they would be able to, the foundation would contribute to having additional resources, whiteboards, musical instruments, anything that they're not getting now due to budget constraints. To the non-public schools, they would provide scholarships to families that can't afford to pay education, whether it's in Catholic schools, Jewish schools, any non-public schools.
Do you expect this bill to pass?
We are praying. Maybe the rabbi can help us out.
Do you have an assembly sponsor?
Yes, the assembly sponsor is Michael Cusick from Staten Island, who's a Republican. But this is...
He's a Democrat. Cusick, isn't he? He's head of the elections committee.
Chair of the
elections committee.
It's a good thing you're here.
Yeah.
So
it's
he's
a good thing you're here.
Yeah.
I don't want to ruin his
No,
reputation.
he wouldn't be chairing the elections
Yeah. No,
committee.
you're right. You're absolutely. Thank you for correcting me. But we do have broad support, not only among elected officials, in terms of unions, the Catholic Association. There's really widespread support, and the governor himself has gone on record as saying, through Larry Schwartz, who's one of his top people, saying that he's supportive of this effort. So we're really hoping that.
Well, the Assembly Speaker, Shelley Silver, should be supportive of this too. I mean,
we'd have to ask him.
But you haven't had a sit down with him or his council, no?
No.
Okay.
He's at a much higher level than I am. So,
but he's almost the same level as Senator Golden.
You know, they say "Shog l'chachma shtika." Silence sometimes is the proof of intelligence. In this case, I'm better off being silent. But this is a rare opportunity
It
to
really is
give
something special.
children in public and non-public schools. That's what's so good about it, because public school children need help in making sure that they get the resources they need that they're losing because of budget constraints, and non-public school children certainly need help with
I
tuition.
think this is important because, first of all, the burden, I mean, people should know, and our viewers should know, the burden of tuition on, listen, people have big families in the Orthodox community and the Orthodox Jewish community, and tuition is really a backbreaker. But you talk like you say, a good Lubavitcher, you don't only care about yourself, you care about everybody else also.
Yeah.
So there are these Catholic schools, and they're breaking, they don't have money,
Yeah.
and they need help.
And the public school children as well.
Yeah.
And the education,
Well, the teachers put out so much money for school supplies.
that would help them.
That really
certainly-
would. Teachers
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
I think teachers and nurses are some of the most underpaid and underappreciated professions in the society. And I really think that anything we could do to help both of them would be great.
I agree.
I
agree.
Let me just move on for
Yeah,
a
sure.
second. I noticed something which was very touching on your website, and that is this resolution in memory of this Holocaust rescuer.
Yeah. It's-
To say his name and
Michael Ber Weissmandl is really very, very hidden person, very modest person. But during the war, he was sending maps and information that he was getting, in essence, they were paying money for people to try to get information.
they meaning the U.S. government.
I'm talking about Rabbi Weissmandl and a
Right.
broad group
Was
of
paying.
people. Yeah, they were
They were
paying for
paying.
information, like intelligence
Okay.
gathering. They got maps of the railroads that were going into some of the camps. They got maps, and in essence, they sent those maps to the United States, and they provided those maps to people that were very, very high up in the U.S. government and were begging for one thing, that they bomb the tracks, that they should bomb the tracks
Yeah.
so that it would stop the death camps.
Well, that's part of where they say FDR knew
Yeah.
and then did nothing.
So that was
And that's
one
part of
area,
it,
and
yeah.
then he was very, very involved with some other people in saving thousands and thousands of Jews.
I got
At
to
his
tell
own
you,
at his own expense, he went back. He lost his entire family
During the Holocaust.
during the Holocaust, and then came back here. But he was a rabbi. He happened to be the son-in-law of the Nitra Rav, who was a very well-respected rabbi in Europe, and he dedicated his life really to saving other people. So the significance of his studies did not in any way come into play when it came to saving Jews.
one of the amazing things that I saw on your website, and I don't think I've seen this before, is that you actually have Hebrew writing on the bottom of that section in your, and usually on your website. And usually you don't see foreign language, whether it's maybe Spanish, but wouldn't see Chinese or Mandarin or.
This is in memory of Rabbi Weissman.
And this is it's in memory of Rabbi Weiss.
Very good.
And he put that on the bottom of the
Excellent.
on the listing.
What we try to make sure that everything is in English, but that doesn't mean that when something is so important that we know that it says that if you save one life, it's as though you save the entire world, which is understandable. So we translated, but we thought that it was, in this case particularly, saying what he stood for.
Well, I thought it was phenomenal, and that's
felt
why I'm
very
bringing
strongly.
it up. And I knew that, well, if you did that and went the extra mile for this, to have the Senate staff who doesn't know Hebrew put this on the website, then I would bring it up because this must have meant something special to you.
It really means it's special to everyone.
Let me ask you about another bill that you have, which is relating to orders of protection and termination of parental rights proceedings, child protective proceedings, and permanency hearings regarding children freed for adoption. And I see here what the issues are, but I'd rather you talk about it.
Can I see, because we're working on a number of them at the same time that sound
It has to do if a child's in foster care and the birth parent wants to be meddling into the life of the child and the foster couple, it causes more of a problem in terms of the child readjusting to another family. And you have legislation that would change what the birth parent can do and cannot do, and allows the courts to implement something more than what already exists now.
This is a very important bill, but I will tell you that due to the sensitive matter that's involved in the bill and the discussions that have been going on, I would prefer not discussing it.
Well,
Yeah,
just from what the
It's
bill
on
memo,
the-
just
it's
from what
on
the
the
bill
line.
memo says,
Yeah,
you know,
it's
just what's
on-
public information.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think it's so important. I covered a story that was similar to this, and I worked
But
with.
Mark, I didn't know, I thought that once you give your child for adoption, that the child will never know. It's not
No,
supposed
they
to
do.
know.
They
They
in
really?
some cases they do know, and if the birth parent meddles in the middle of a adoption, foster case, it really is more disruptive to both the foster parent's
Sure.
family and then
No,
the
I can
child
imagine
in
that,
terms of the
sure.
struggle at such a young age. It's emotional struggle.
Yeah.
So what, I mean, is this, you're chair of the Children and Families
Yeah.
Committee, so I presume that it's in connection with your role there.
It is, but as I said, I know you're doing a good job at asking me questions, and they're good questions. But in this particular, sometimes there's discussion. This is certainly public,
Yeah.
open public viewing, but I would prefer not discussing it at this time,
Is there-
because I'm hoping that we're going to come up with some really good solution to this that would be even more helpful.
But just saying, again, I always go back, I guess I'm the rabbi and Mark's the
Yeah,
reporter.
it's good.
But in any case, Dad, we're a good team. But, it's like Lubavitcher, Dad, actually, I just wanted to bring out, you say about the Lubavitcher Rebbe, that this number of years ago that education was part of and I'm talking about
Yeah,
the national
yeah,
level.
yeah.
And the Rebbe said education is so super important. And again, that universal attitude that he says, and people saying, oh, you're making more government, they're making the education department. Again, it does
Yeah,
cost
yeah.
more money, but the Rebbe felt this is super important. I mean, you got to spend your money wisely.
Yes.
And this was very wise, and that's, again, this is part of what the Rebbe says, just for society in general.
Yeah.
You're dealing with children, lo and behold, children grow up to be adults, to tell people that. But, it is that, I see it because I work with all kinds of people, and people would have problems, to say the very least, and they come to the rabbi, and like I say, I'm half a social worker just because I'm a rabbi. But in any case, that it is super important what you're doing. I mean, it's really, sometimes I feel people say, what are you doing? Well, I don't make cars and I don't make airplanes. I'm a rabbi. Well, what are you there? I says, well, I'm helping people in society. If you change, like you said, even one person, it's a whole world, let alone number of people, which, of course, you have that situation, you have that power to help children, and, that's tomorrow, that's the future, it's the children.
It's funny you say that, because my father, may he rest in peace, and my mother, until 120 in good health, their whole life they dedicated to helping people. My father, for many years, I should say in 1952, opened a shtibel, which is a small shul.
And your father was Harry Felder.
Yeah, in Borough Park,
Right.
good. In Borough Park, and
The Beth Aaron congregation.
that's correct.
Okay.
It's named for my grandfather, who
Oh,
was a
really?
watchmaker.
Mhm.
But that shul, that shtibel, to this day, my father passed away 5 years ago, is a minion factory. It's busy day and night, and people are studying. But for many, many years, this is before 18th Avenue was sort of the center of Borough Park, became. But that 1952, 18th Avenue was a suburb of Borough Park. When my father established the shul, had a Talmud Torah, where kids from public schools came for a Jewish, they called it at that time, release hour. They came for some education. But my father and mother, besides the shul itself, which still to this day is a hub of prayers, as well as for studying, that they're all day and all night, it's open. And my father and mother were what you described, a rabbinic family. It was a social service organization without the funding for it. Anybody who needed help, Jewish, non-Jewish, used to come for food, for lodging, for other things. People have problems. So when you say, what do? You really do everything. And that's the job you have.
Helping people is the
Yeah.
highest profession.
Yeah.
in a
Well, you
sense.
Yeah.
talk about feeding and all. Have you? What's happened with your attempt to ban feeding of pigeons in New York City?
Oh, I tell you that I stopped even discussing that bill
Okay,
because
never mind.
it was such. No, it was very easy. My wife had bought me a brand new tie for, I don't remember which one of the Yom Tovim, the holidays, and a pigeon did what it does, and it's clear that in the city at least it's a real problem. I approached PETA, all the organizations that were involved in protecting animals, and I asked them, and they encouraged me to put forth legislation that would prohibit feeding pigeons except on your own property.
That's
And that went
interesting.
through. It got
Oh
signed.
no! What happened was that everyone was they were discouraging me from doing anything with it. I said, no, this is something that's
Why
really.
were they against?
I don't know, but I'm just telling you, it was a
And-
simple law that you're allowed to feed pigeons. No one's telling you not to, but it should be on your property because people used to bring.
Go to the park.
Yeah, and they said it was bad for the pigeons. It was bad. It brings rodents, all kinds of things. It was a simple piece of legislation. I will tell you that. I said, no, we have to do something about it. I just felt like it was wrong. So I have this press conference on a Sunday morning near City Hall to discuss this. And it's 10 o'clock or whatever time it was, no one showed up to this press conference. I'm thinking to myself, look, I tried. I figured I'll wait another 5 minutes or so. I'm about to leave, and throngs, I'm saying, of reporters.
Oh, I thought you'd say pigeons.
No, they felt throngs
Of
of
reporters,
reporters.
yeah.
There was no issue that I had that got so much attention.
Oh.
I'm talking about international. There was CNN. Everybody showed up for this pigeon.
Well,
And
it's a
did-
big
and
thing. I don't understand.
I don't know.
Did the
I
pigeon
don't.
pay a visit to you during your news conference?
Yeah, that's funny. There was a pigeon walking around, you know.
Wanting
and
to hear what-
Yeah, no, I was thinking to myself, it's not about you. You get plenty of food. But I stopped talking about it because after that press conference, it got so much coverage.
Yeah.
No one would talk to me about anything else besides pigeons.
Well, I didn't know that. And I just sort of.
But
saw
we're
it.
here. We're here.
Okay.
You did your homework clearly.
I'm just amazed, you have a great background and you've done so much for the community, and that really just shows, that you know how to connect with people. What makes that magic happen? What is inside that makes that happen?
I would like to attribute the love for people, for at least to the greatest part is to my parents, because you grow up in a household and you watch people. I can't compete with my father and mother, but watching the love and the care that you felt, it was in the air whenever they met people, is something that I have tried, and I try to
Emulate.
encourage my kids to as well, to say hello, to say good morning, to be nice to everyone. And it's something that my father, may rest in peace, when he used to travel on the trains, he used to strike up conversation with everyone and anyone. Today, he'd probably be locked up in jail if he did that. They say, oh, what are you trying to do? But I try,
It's called
it's
being
something.
friendly,
Yeah, I try, and it's something, something that's we should all work on.
I've asked this of the assemblymen who were observant. We've had Phil Goldfeder
Good.
on and Mike Simanowitz
Yeah.
and Dov Heiken.
Yeah.
How do you, keeping kosher, and how do you personally survive up here and live up here when we don't have a kosher restaurant? I know in the assembly they have fruit and they have certain other parve type of thing, foods, but they don't have anything specifically kosher. Do you have and Assemblyman Goldfeder said he has a refrigerator stocked with food, and I checked it out. He's got a lot of junk food around, pretzels and potato chips. But how do you live? How do you survive up here with your food requirements?
It's funny, the rabbi is here. We have a Chabad rabbi, so I keep on thinking of analogies, but the Chabad shluchim that go over the world, they figure it out. I'm in good shape.
Well, tell me, how do you-
So let me just say is that there's two categories. One is nash, or junk, and the other is actually eating something of substance. So there are a lot of things, obviously if you go into the lounge in the Assembly and the Senate, there's a lot more junk as well as good food that I cannot partake of. But there's fruits, plenty of fruit, there's plenty of HO oatmeal. I'm not plugging a particular brand, but there's there's plenty of products that have an OU or some sort of certification. We live in a time that it really is really easy. I can't tell you that I in any way enjoy the meals that I would have at home, all right? I can't. My wife's cooking, although I will say to you, to her praise, my wife cooks up chicken cutlets, other side dishes, puts it almost like in a takeout container.
Yeah.
She freezes them. Then when I come up for a 4-day trip, I put them into the briefcase. Oh. I bring them up, and according to kosher law, you double wrap it, and I do warm it up. So the dinners, I can't get better.
Because you bring it up from home.
And then even lunches, I bring up tuna salad that's prepared or other things like that. So I'm not.
But that's what you have to do. You have to bring it.
Yeah.
You think four days ahead, and
that is true. That is true.
Like you're packing clothes. You got
That's
to think 4 days ahead.
That's
so
correct.
you have to do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm just trying now. Senator Scalos, who's the Senate Majority Leader or co-leader, represents a part of Long Island that is the 5 towns and is very Jewish, and he knows, even though he's Greek, he knows a lot of the kosher laws and stuff. I was very impressed after the State of the State message that he actually had some price chopper bagels and meats and breads and and kosher meat and sandwiches for people. That I believe he might have had that before you arrived, but I know certainly every year since you've been in the Senate, he's had that. Is that an attribution to you? Is that
No, not at all. That's
Okay.
his. I don't know if he had it before, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if he did. And I think that it's a sensitivity. Anybody who knows him knows what a special person he is. Very, very warm, caring person. It's an accommodation, and it's just a sensitivity.
I mean, just generally, again, as I've been saying to Orthodox Jews, how do you get along with your fellow senators in general?
I want to tell you that for the most part, people respond to other people. It's like the way you treat them, the way they treat you. A lot of people that I've met don't know much at all about what it means to be a Jew at all, forgetting about an Orthodox Jew. I had a very, very funny incident when I first got here. I was talking to somebody, and he was very warm. I just got here, how are you doing? And he came over to me and he says, "I'll have you know." And he wasn't Jewish. He says, "I'll have you know, my wife is Jewish." So I didn't want to make a whole thing out of it. I said, "I'll have you know, my wife is Jewish."
too.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd get a good laugh.
Yeah.
Well, he says to me, "That's very nice."
Yeah.
So, I mean,
the
so
way
it's
you
an
act with other
education,
people,
but people, I think, overwhelmingly are nice if you're nice to them, and they have been overwhelmingly very warm, very nice.
And you do, as a Democrat, you still caucus and sit with the Republicans in the conference.
Yes.
And they're warm and respectful.
Very much
and
so.
They don't
Very
care
much
about
so.
your party label. They care about you.
No,
as an
not at
individual.
all. Not at all.
Why don't you change your enrollment to be the second Republican from New York City in the Senate?
It's a good question. The answer to that is that to this day in New York City, Democratic enrollment is overwhelmingly Democratic. I should say,
enrollment is overwhelmingly
Democratic. So in local elections, it makes no difference because in my district, I'm fortunate enough to have constituents that really are independent and liberal, if I may say. I want to define that because, for example, years ago, Governor George Pataki who was a Republican, won with the same percentages as Carl McCall, who was the Democratic candidate for controller.
Right.
So that's clear. So
But I just wanted to say that, here you are, I mean, Senator Roback from Rochester
Yeah.
was elected to the Senate as a Democrat, and then when he ran for re-election, he switched to the Republican side. Could you
No, I
follow?
want to answer the question
Yeah.
because I didn't answer it yet. They say if you ask a politician a question, he answers whatever he wants to say. It may not have anything to do with
That's
the
why
question.
I bring you back to it.
Yeah, that's why you're a tough customer.
Yeah.
So the answer to the question is, but citywide elections in New York City, if you want to have any impact on who the next mayor is, the
Right.
next controller, or the next public advocate, without being registered as a Democrat, you have no impact. That's the way the city is. So in a general election, you can still vote. You can still vote your conscience in any party. You can vote wherever you want. But with regard to the primaries,
Yeah.
if you're not a registered Democrat, you have no impact on ultimately who the citywide officials will be in a city that you live in.
All right.
Well, that's like Albany is like
Mark,
that.
we're out
Okay.
of time, but I want to give you a blessing. That's what Mark always tells me. You're a rabbi, you got to give a blessing. It's part of my job. No, but it's just my pleasure because it really is, you said yourself, you're a Kiddush Hashem, sanctification in God's name, Orthodox Jew, and you care about all the people of New York State, including the children, and people respect you for who you are and what you are, and we only wish that you should continue with good health and representing the good people of New York State.
And come back again.
Amen. V'hamavorech yisparech, which means that both of you who are giving blessings should receive the same blessings, at least.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amen.